Hi, this is Amy Plum, and today I'm going to read you chapter 1 of my ebook. It's an e-novella called Die for Her, which just came out yesterday, April 2nd. This is like Die for Me 2.5. It's the first two books from Jules' point of view, so I hope you enjoy it. The first time I see her, I peg her as a jump risk. Vince and I are walking the quays, and there she is, long dark hair whipping around her face as she stands on the edge of the cobblestone walkway, looking down at the water, a mere 5 feet above the waves. The Seine is swollen from winter rains, so though the jump would be harmless from that height, the barely choppy surface could hide dangerous currents. We head toward her, my hand already extended to touch her arm, to pass my calm to her, one of our only real superpowers as a revenant, or, as Ambrose likes to call us, undead guardian angels with a bad case of OCD. But before we reach her, she turns and walks away, heading for one of the quay's stone benches, where she curls her legs up to her chest and ropes her knees in with her arms. She remains that way, hugging herself, rocking back and forth, and staring blindly across the river with tears coursing down her cheeks as we pass unnoticed. "What do you think?" I ask Vincent, who pulls his scarf up over his nose and mouth, shielding himself from the frigid January wind. "I don't think she's going to jump," he says, "but let's circle around under the bridge to make sure." We stride side by side until we get to the Carousel Bridge. Even the indigents who regularly sleep under its arches have cleared out. It's one of the coldest days on record, at least since I moved to Paris a century ago. We good revenants, called bardia, are fated to watch over humans, saving them from premature death by suicide, murder, or accident. Our job is definitely easier in weather like this with everyone staying indoors, but even members of the reanimated undead can feel the cold. Most of our work for the last few days has been rounding up the few remaining street people and getting them to care centers before they suffer frostbite or even death from exposure. Judging by her clothes and hygiene, this girl is definitely not homeless. Instead, she's pretty enough to add to my girls to ask out list. However, hitting on someone who is crying isn't quite my style. So if she's not homeless, why is she here, taking a solitary stroll next to the river in the freezing cold? We confirm that there are no stragglers under the bridge and then turn to head back to the bench. When we reach it, it is empty. A few yards away, I see the girl climbing the stairs to street level. Since there's no one else around, we follow her at a safe distance, ready to run as she heads for the bridge. "Ambrose, use your foresight. Do you see her jumping?" I ask. "Nah." The word skips my ears and goes straight to my mind in Ambrose's deep baritone. "But she's about to sprint up the rue de back." "We should follow her," I say to Vincent. "She's acting bizarrely enough to merit a few more minutes of surveillance." "Agreed. She could still throw herself in front of a car," he says, concerned. "Something's obviously wrong with her." "I'm banking on it being the result of a bad breakup," I reply. "That's what happens when people get too serious. Feelings get hurt, hearts get broken. Some people never learn. Don't get serious. It's my #1 rule." I rub my hands together and blow on them, trying to force hot breath through my wool gloves. "My fingers are icicles, and the streets are empty. Let's head back to La Maison." "Wimp," taunts Ambrose. "Hey, if you weren't currently disembodied, you'd be agreeing with me, ghost boy," I say, and hear him chuckle. Vincent isn't paying attention and picks up his pace. I glance ahead of us and see that the girl has started to run. We follow her, leaving a good half block between us. There's no traffic for her to throw herself in front of, and we don't want to call unnecessary attention to ourselves. She jogs up the rue de Bac, crosses the Boulevard Saint-Germain, and finally turns at a square where old stately apartment buildings are grouped around a small park. She walks up to one, and while opening the door, turns and casts a quick look behind her. Vincent and I duck our heads down and walk straight up the rue de Bac without her seeing our faces. But I saw hers. And her expression is one that I recognize. I've seen it many times during my existence, especially in the line of work I'm in. The girl is suffering from terrible grief. Vincent and I lock eyes, and I tip my head left, toward home. He understands, and we walk to the end of the block, turning eastward towards La Maison. It's not like we can read each other's minds. But when you're best friends with someone for over a half a century, you start to recognize their every gesture. We're like an old couple. Words are almost unnecessary. We walk for a while in silence, keeping an eye out for anything amiss. Ambrose doesn't spot any activity at all in the neighborhood, and is singing a Louis Armstrong song directly into my brain, probably to piss me off. "Who's the lucky lady tonight?" Vincent asks, as he taps the code into our security panel. The gate swings slowly open. "Quintana," I respond. "From?" "New York, upstate somewhere, over here doing an art degree." "Blonde?" he asks. "Negative," I respond. "Dark hair with blue tips, alternative chic." "Sounds like your type," he jokes. We both know that I don't have a type. Female is my type. Like I said, we're an old couple, we need few words, but we couldn't be more different. Vincent stopped dating decades ago. Not that he had been much into it before. "What's the point?" he had said. This was around 1890, and that year's bouquet of Parisiennes was breathtaking. "What's the point?" I exclaimed. "They're beautiful, and soft, and they smell good. What do you mean, what's the point?" "We can only go so far, and then we have to disappear from their lives. It's not worth it if we can't even get close," he sighed. "Excuse me, but I make a regular habit of getting close." "I don't mean like that," he responded. "I'm talking emotional intimacy. And why risk exposure of our entire kindred for a girl you're only going to spend a few nights with?" His expression was flat, uncaring, but I knew there was an ocean of pain bottled inside him. "Man, no one will ever compare to Helene. It's been 70 years since you saw her murdered by those Nazis, and you're still hanging on. You've just got to accept that your first love is your greatest, and everything else is going to be second best. Second best is better than nothing at all." My arguments fall on deaf ears with Vincent. If he won't amuse himself with humans, the only other choice is to go revenant. And we pretty much know all of the female members of our kindred in France. They're like sisters to us. Revenants do occasionally fall for one another. It happens. But it just hasn't happened to Vincent or me. And until the next global convocation, we probably won't meet any new Bardia beauties. Which is A-okay with me. Why settle for one girl if you can have a lot? It's a good motto, I find. Works for drinks, friends, and women. Not so much for enemies. But our situation in France is stable. Similar number of Numa and Bardia. The balance of good and evil has reached an equilibrium in the past few years, which means I've got time to play. So I hope you enjoyed that. That is chapter 1 of Die for Her, an e-novella that is out since yesterday, April 2nd.